Hello. Good. Oh, why is it not showing? Oh, there we go. Okay. Perfect. How's it going, Karina? Good. It's my headphones. It's so crazy. It's like 90 degrees today in LA, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Sweater weather. I know. We could wear sweaters. I love it. I love it. I forget because you're in Texas, right? Okay. Oh my goodness. I know. But fall is a good season. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of happy it's here. I feel so much better. Uh. It is kind of wild. I'm not gonna lie. Like this is the second time I think I've had like a because there was a trans woman who had commented on something that I had posted, and like we connected and we did like a Zoom just to chat with each other, and because she had been doing TikTok for much longer, and she was giving me tips, and it was like, wow, I love community. Like it's wild. So I'm with you. Hmm. Oh, that's fabulous. Grateful too. I know, and also I have to give a shout out to my friend Marvel for that because that's the friend who tagged me on your video. Like Mar Yeah, Marvel, he's an amazing dear friend of mine. I will give him a little shout out. He does this TikTok called Shirtless Astrology. He's hilarious. He's like my trans brother in a lot of ways. He always makes this joke that he looks like a trans version of Jason Bateman, which is pretty true. But yeah, he's an astrologer, and actually we could talk about it at some point, but he's like part of the reason I've gone down this like spiritual journey around a lot of healing this past year. But it was cool because he was the one who saw your video and then tagged me, and I was like, oh my gosh, small world. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Wherever you want to go. I feel like you're hosting. I'll let you host. Also, we could say hi to some of the people. I see there's some people who have joined. Fair World, hello. I don't know who else is here. I don't know how to see people. I see sofas. There's so much going on. I'm not gonna lie, like but no, but I think I need to. um, love it. Heck yeah. I love this. Okay, this is so interesting, especially with the whole conversation about trans kids today. So, I mean, for me, first, let's see, I grew up Catholic, very Catholic. My mom was a convert. So it's like no emotions, no sexuality, very repressed. But when I went off to college, this is in 2007, I came out as a lesbian. And it was kind of like, one of those things where it's like, girl, everybody knew but you kind of thing, where I literally was like on the rugby team and I don't know. I never had a boyfriend in high school. I think for a while I thought I was asexual. again, looking back, it's like hard to know what was really going on. I also was like such an overachiever. So I feel like I was more in my head than I was in my body. Um, and like going off to college was really nice because like I had some queer friends, my two gay cis friends, Emmanuel, who was like this very sassy Dominican from Camden, New Jersey. Like he was so like, I'm queer, this is what I'm about, I know who I am. I mean, he went to boarding school. I always feel like boarding school people are like that, where they're like, yes, this is what it is. Boarding school and New Yorkers, like, because I grew up, yeah, they're like, yeah, and also, I mean, I think it's like the independence thing, especially at a young age. I mean, that's also why I feel like New Yorkers are like this too, where I was like really intimidated by them because I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up outside Chicago, and I was just like, oh, this little ingenue. But yeah, and then my other friend Clarence, and so from them, I first learned about what it meant to be queer because I remember they were both like, yeah, I identify as queer. It's more of like a political statement around my politics and as well as being like, somewhere in the LGBTQ world, even though I feel like back then it was really more LGB, sometimes T. But yeah, so like first I heavily identified as being lesbian. It was amazing. I mean, I always talk about it like I don't know, it was like the grad school of like how to live a better life as a woman. Like, because it was, and it's just like this nice thing because you're like part of this club. It feels like, like you have this level of sisterhood that's like really deep. And like, I also feel like in the lesbian community, there's like a level of like intergenerational, I don't know, teaching, understanding, like, even just like I kind of caught the tail end of like the lesbian bar era when the dyke bars were still around, like because I went to school in Philly. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and their sisters was like the spot to go. And like I don't know, you still had spaces like this. It's kind of sad because like a lot of places have closed down. Just it's hard to stay in business, also just like yeah. And like relative to gay cis men, it's like who makes more money, right? Like it's not going to be the women, not going to be the women who are queer, which is also why, like, I mean, this is like a larger community conversation. A lot of those spaces are either like floating parties, but it's not very brick and mortar in the same way, like here in LA, literally WeHo is just like a gay utopia for gay cis men. Or, Chelsea, New York, same thing. Um, but anyway, yeah, so did that. That was lovely. I studied abroad in Paris. Had a tough time in Paris, but I went to Berlin when I was like visiting when I was living there, and I loved Berlin. Berlin is like queertopia. It's also like if you're in your 20s and you want to just like check out of reality for some time, you can retire at 25. And I was such a club kid. Like I love house music. I love dancing. I like thought that would be in Paris, but then when I got to Paris, it was like, oh my God, there's all these rules and restrictions. And like, I was in a very intense program. But then Berlin was like the place where you can kick it and just like kind of live your life. So I applied. Sorry, say it again. Yes. Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's the odd child of Germany, and like they know that as like it's kind of like the weirdo. Yeah. And I mean, and historically it's been that way. It's fascinating. I mean, I learned so much when I lived there. I lived there for like 2.5 years because I ended up getting a fellowship after college. I was working in public policy back then, had a totally different life. Um, like this is all the Obama years. I was all like, yeah, hope and change and like, I know, Karina. So we can still have it. We can still have it. I think the fact that we lived it means that we need to carry it to the next generation so they know that life doesn't have to be like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, we have to teach the children. I also, like, I've seen all these things, which I do think is true. It's like, as millennials, we are sandwiched between two very, like, or three confused generations of sorts where it's like delusional boomers and very disillusioned Gen Zers, which is what it is. But um, yeah, so back then I was doing a lot of work on eco justice and environmental policy, which is like why I was like, okay, I'll go to Berlin, do that whole bit, because I was doing research on this. And then I kind of fell into the ballroom scene. So I had this girl, well, let me tell you. So the thing was, I always tell the story. I had a German non-binary pole dancer roommate named Bella, as you do. Yeah, Bella was a lot of things. Also, because Bella was one of these. Okay, because this was the thing in Berlin. There were a lot of like rich Germans who would kind of like cosplay being like working poor. I mean, this is every city on some level. Like LA has a version of this, New York has a version of this, Chicago. But Bella was kind of one of those because like literally their dad like owned our apartment and anyway, but they would like walk around in rags and be like, I'm doing all these like artsy things. Anyway, so yada yada yada. Bella, I remember was installing the pole for their room, and it's funny too because like Berlin has these like really high ceilings, and I remember they were like, "Oh, I'm gonna need more pole." But we were kikiing about Paris is Burning, and the documentary about ballroom, and we were just quoting the film back and forth to each other, and I feel like this is such a like virtue signal thing, especially like pre-pose, before Legendary, before any of these shows and things existed, or like social media was really popping off of ballroom stuff. I feel like that was kind of like a code language to be like, oh, are you in the know kind of thing. And we were recording the film, and then Bella goes, you can take a voguing class here. And I was like, this is the whitest place on earth. Why would that be here in Berlin? But sure enough, there was actually this Afro-German woman, Georgina. She was a dancer in the hip hop scene. She, like a lot of dancers around the world, they like save up their money, go to New York for the summer, take a bunch of dance classes, and they oftentimes fall into ballroom. So it'll be like they went to a ball or they took a class with somebody who's teaching voguing. But she fell in love with the culture, wanted to bring it back to Germany. She held the first ball ever in Germany in 2012, Berlin Voguing Out. I went, she did like a workshop that went with it, and I loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is like so for me. Because I had seen a lot of YouTube clips of people voguing, and like me and my friends, Clarence and Manuel, we'd watch them, we would kind of like make fun of the, or like pretend to be chanting, which is like the stuff that the commentator says. Like, if you listen to like Beyonce's Renaissance album, there's this guy, Kevin Jay-Z Prodigy. He does this thing on the Pure Honey song where he's like cut 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 cut, right? Like that whole thing. Um, so I always wanted to get into the culture, and then when I was like, oh shit, this is here in Berlin, I'm in. But when I took her workshop, the thing was, I remember she went through a bunch of different styles of voguing, and she also taught like some runway as well. And even before any of that, we started with practicing posing, and which is like the foundation of all of this, right? Because like voguing is really just you're posing on a beat, you're making, shapes with your body, this kind of stuff. And I went in thinking I was gonna kill it at all the femme stuff because I wanted to do the really cool, like, whipping your head around and jumping off of tables, and, just all this like Naomi on 100. And instead, I remember when we did the original style of voguing, which is the style that I do now, old way performance, which is like about geometric poses and lines and things like that. Like my body just naturally kind of knew what to do. And I remember she was like, after the workshop, she was like, oh, Sid, you're like really good at all the masculine stuff. And back then, I mean, I was like a little androgynous butch. I call it my twink years because I was a lot slimmer back then. The testosterone, it's crazy. But um, like it's, but the thing was, and this is what I didn't know at the time, because like growing up, I mean, the house I grew up in, I had two sisters, one older, one younger. It was a very girly house. My mom was like very traditional, conservative in a certain way, especially around gender. And like there was no real space for me to be like my tomboy self when I was younger. Or rather that was like frowned upon, And so it's strange because even though in Berlin I felt super free to be queer and androgynous and all this stuff, I still had this thing in the back of my mind that I was like, I want to prove that I could like perform gender really well. Like I felt like I was like a feminine failure and that I needed to show that no, I could do this. I just choose not to, you know? Um, but when Georgina was like, Sid, you're actually really good at this, it totally reframed my perspective. And I was like, oh, what if, oh, well, first of all, when she said it, she's like, actually, really good at you're really good at the masculine stuff. I remember actually my first reaction was, I know that's what I'm trying to fix. Like, as if I was like a problem to be fixed, because I know. I know. I mean, I have a lot of compassion for that younger version of who I was, that like 20 something, because literally after that, everything shifted. Because I was like, oh, cool, I want to do more of this thing that makes me feel good, like all of these old lines and masculine movements. And then I just got deeper into voguing. I was in San Francisco for a little bit because my mom had moved to the Bay, and I remember doing like a Vogue workshop there before I moved back to Europe because I was in Berlin for a little bit, and then I did this master's program between Paris and London. It was like a dual degree in urban planning. Before then, I was working at a think tank where I was working on like an urban sustainability project. And so I was like, okay, maybe I can like stay out here longer and focus on this. But yeah, basically, once I got to Paris, I just went deeper into the culture because ballroom by that point, I mean, it's really interesting because like ballroom in Paris had started its own scene in like 2004 ish. And I was there like 2014 to like 2015. And so there were multiple scenes that had started to like kind of crop up throughout Europe. So I'd like travel to like Rotterdam or Amsterdam for a ball or, Hamburg or, wherever. And again, I was just like getting deeper into it. But then everything shifted. And this is the moment that changed everything. I was stuck in Paris in the fall of 2015, waiting for my visa to go to London. And I remember there was this ball called the Back to School Ball. And the whole premise was just like all back to school themes. What it was like, there was like a Britney Spears theme for like the Vogue Femme people or whatever. And then there was this category I saw called Butch Realness. And the idea with realness, like, is that you're going to portray basically a cis heterosexual archetype of society, right? So you're going to be like, either if you're a butch queen, which is like a gay or bisexual cis man, you're going to like portray some straight version of society. So it's like if you're an executive, you're like a Wall Street executive, or like you could be like a schoolboy and you're supposed to be like a straight schoolboy. They have it for like most of the like gender identities, but for butches, which refers to lesbians, um, the category was to bring it like a racaille, which in French means like a bad boy thug. And I used to go to this one boxing gym that was kind of like outside of Paris a little bit. I mean, there isn't really a hood. Like there's a hood in Paris, whatever, but it's not, it's not like scary, scary just because there's like no guns and stuff. But it's really just like yeah, it's just like a place where there's like Muslims. Woo, like they're all like they're like so Islamophobic over there. They're like, oh, black and brown people praying 5 times a day. How scary, you're like, whatever. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous, but it was also nice. I loved that gym. It was really great. Like it was such a good place. Boxing Beats. It was this place I used to go to in Aubervilliers. Anyway, I remember how the guys used to dress because this is before monochrome sweatpants. Everybody's doing like the monochrome sweats on sweats sliders. That was not a thing in 2015. I just want to say. However, that was kind of what I feel like a lot of the dudes there would wear, especially like the more fitted sweats, and then like they, with their Pumas and bomber jackets. So I pulled together a look based on what I had. I had this like Bears bomber jacket, my Penn sweater hoodie, and then like a pair of sweatpants and stuff. And the thing was, I just wanted to win the trophy. I wasn't really thinking about like any deeper meaning to any of this. Because my house members at the time were like, Sid, this category's for you. You could totally kill it. And I was like, great. I want to win a trophy because I hadn't won a trophy yet. And I'll never forget, I hit the runway. So I had my hood up And I remember my house mother at the time was like, okay, Sid, keep your hood up. And then when you get to the middle of the runway, pull it back to like reveal your face. And I was like, okay. So I did this. And even when I started to just walk, people started going up for me in this nightclub where this was happening. And it was like so insane. And then, of course, like I revealed my hood. Even the judges were clapping and standing up. And, in Paris, the girls are shady. It's like, it's kind of shade on shade on shade because they're already French and Parisian. And then you're ballroom. So you're like, beyond you know so to get that kind of validation was like massive. And for me, like I said, I grew up being like kind of ostracized as like this little butch kid. And so like to be in a space where I'm like, oh wow, like everything my mother, my sister, my aunts told me was wrong about me is so right, was like beyond. So it's interesting. Oh, sorry. I know. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging why my life is the way it is. Um, yeah, no, I mean, it was also just so surreal to, to your point, like it was, I wasn't even like trying, I think that's the thing, because it's like with voguing, you really gotta, it's a lot of work. Realness really is, who are you authentically showing up truly as the truest form of yourself. It's part of why it's so powerful for trans people when we walk this category, because it's like literally everything in the world is telling you that you're wrong, that you're, whatever. You go down the list, people telling you're an abomination, etc. If you have family who didn't support you, so on and so forth. And then like you get into that arena and like you're surrounded by your peers and like people who love you and truly see you how you're meant to be seen, and then applaud you for that. I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, after that moment, I remember this kind of like planted the seed, because when I got to the UK, I remember I wanted to start therapy. It was like something that just kind of was like hard to do when I was in continental Europe, just because I was moving so much. It'd be like I was on these like academic calendars. But when I was in London, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I feel that, maybe I have all this like family trauma stuff I want to like unpack. And there was this like POC queer place for like therapy. Somebody had posted it on a forum about it. And I was like, oh, let me check this space out. And of course, I do the intake thinking, okay, we're going to talk about all of my family shit. But then I remember what ended up coming out was like all of my trans stuff that I didn't even know was there. And it was interesting because like they paired me with a trans guy. I had no idea he was trans until like, I don't know, we were however many sessions in, and then we're talking about the stuff, and then he like disclosed, and then sorry. So this is the thing, like in the scene, and mind you, in London, I mean, I was doing my master's program, but I was also like heavily DJing, throwing balls with one of my friends. Like I was, like I had way more free time, so I was like hustling, just really part of club life in East London. And I'm trying to think. No, it was only through working with Serge, my therapist at the time, that, and I wish I kept a diary at this time, but because I'm like, I wish I knew what the turning point was. I really can't remember it. I just remember like meeting with him, and then, maybe there were questions around my gender that were coming up. Um, but yeah, at some point it started to be clear to me that, oh, like this lesbian identity that I have doesn't really fit anymore. And there's maybe like three things I can point to when I look back. One was when I was in Paris that summer before I went to London. So I was dating this person, very lovely human being who was like, I mean, she was like amazing as a person, really lovely. And she was just like, how do I say this? She was part of the ball scene. She was a dancer, choreographer, like a STEM person as well, which was so crazy. And then also like a model, and just like such a joy. And I remember we took a picture by Notre Dame, and because my friend was in town, and I remember when I saw the photo, I like she's gorgeous. It's huge Shaka Khan hair. And I looked at myself and I was like, I really didn't like the way I looked. And I remember feeling this like disconnect between how I thought I looked and then how I actually looked. And it was like this weird thing where I was like, oh, okay, like I look like I remember feeling like, oh, I look like this mousy little person instead of like, I couldn't articulate in these words at the time, but just like, oh, I'm not like a man or like, I don't know, something more. So that's like one thing I look back at where I'm like, yeah, that was definitely like a hint. Um, but I think once Serge kind of like opened the door for me to be expansive around all this stuff, because I was already like thinking about testosterone maybe, or like I knew trans. Yes, yes. But actually, the other possibility model was this trans guy in the ball scene, King, or Seven King, I think is his name. He had this YouTube series called Eden's Garden. And I remember watching it, and it like just basically, it was just like poorly scripted, very low budget, like a web series about like black and brown trans guys in New York. And I remember watching it and I was like, oh my God, these guys are all hot. Like, this is amazing. I didn't know that you could look like that or be like that. Like I was just like so blown away. I was like, oh my gosh. And also like some of them it was cool too, because like on the show, like some of the guys had relationships with cis men or trans women and like just to also see that there was like an expansiveness around their sexuality too was just like, wow, like didn't know that was possible. Um so like that planted seed and then Teak Milan. Sorry. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But like, I'm not gonna lie, and this is what's so strange to me is because like when I lived in Berlin, there were trans masculine people, not a lot. Like there was this one trans guy at my boxing gym there, Lucas, and I remember him, and he had a boyfriend. But I think there was something about seeing Americans and like seeing myself, whereas like I felt like an outsider in Europe. Um, so anyway, just the possibility, definitely possibility model, but like. I also think the fact that they were all really hot was like clearly something where I was like, oh, I didn't know this was possible and you can do that. Like, fuck yeah, why wouldn't I do that? So yeah, that kind of like started. So it's like first I changed my pronouns and then I was trying to pursue HRT or like hormone replacement therapy, basically taking testosterone. And it was kind of like at the end of my visa in London. And I was like uncertain if I wanted to stay because I wasn't really happy in London. And I was like, oh, I have a bunch of trans friends in New York. It's so much easier to transition there. I'll just go back to the States and like do that. And at that time, because I did my master's thesis on ballroom history and I was doing oral histories with the community, I was trying to figure out like, oh, should I do a PhD? What should I do? And at the time, I just gotten so much feedback from people who were like, Sid, you should do a PhD. Like, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll move back to the States, apply for programs, and just do that. So yeah, that's kind of how that all started to get the ball rolling. But literally, once I moved back to the U.S. and moved to New York, I literally started tea like maybe like 2 weeks. Like it was crazy. It was a quick turnaround. Whereas in the UK, you can be like literally waiting for like over a year trying to like start your transition, just the way their healthcare system is set up. So yeah, like literally. I mean, that to me is like the flip side because like they always like to talk about, oh, it's free, and it's like you pay with your time. And I mean, this is the kind of thing that's tough to use. It's like very patchy as far as our healthcare system goes because if you do live in a major metropolitan city like in New York, LA, or Chicago, you could like get access to trans healthcare more easily because there's like nonprofits that do this work and like the place I went to, Callan Lord, is like very well known for this in New York. Like they're one of those like one-stop shop where there's like the pharmacy is there and your GP and the therapist and the so you can like get all the stuff that you need to kind of like begin your journey if you're going to transition all in one place, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on. Well, yes and no. I mean, I don't want to paint it because, every country is different as far as their healthcare system and what the costs are and stuff. Because, like, friends like, for example, I know some people have had top surgery in Germany, for example, and, like, there's certain places that are very well known or, like, they've done it for decades. And, like, either you're paying, like, next to nothing and, like, the aftercare, you'll stay. Like, literally, I remember my friend it was like a Catholic place too. It was super fascinating where he had his top surgery work done. And I can't remember like where in Germany it was, but he like stayed for the aftercare for like over a week, and like that does not exist in the United States of America. Like I literally, okay, yeah. Right? No, and whereas in America, it's like you might be able to get it done faster, but honey, you're saving thousands, I mean, I think a lot of places it's improved where, depending on your insurance, they'll cover it, but for a lot of people that, it was known that you would be saving like literally like $30,000 for this surgery because it's not just the surgery itself, but then it's like you need to like wait after for to be checked up on and all this kind of stuff. But yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so it's so interesting. Okay, and it's also I almost feel I think we talked about this. Like I feel like old man Sid a little bit. I mean, it's not super ancient as far as like the process I went through, but I think things have improved for a lot of folks over time, like especially the recovery time. So let's see. I think yeah, I always knew I wanted to get top surgery. The first thing I did was I got a binder, so that's like this like meshy material, you put it like under your shirt, and it just like smushes your boobs down so that you can have like this kind of like masculine silhouette. And I remember I got that when I was in London, and and again, it's so crazy because there was like maybe like two companies doing, just not a lot of variety. Whereas like now you can just get this stuff easily on Amazon. Um, so I did that for a while, and I think I used to try and convince myself I was happy and that this was enough, but it like obviously was not. And I'll never forget, like, I remember I was in Amsterdam with one of my house members who's a trans guy, and I was like trying to put the, the binder on in the corner of a room and just like truly yes, just like struggling with this like human girdle thing. And I remember I just remember, and he's a Scorpio too, so I remember him just like looking at me like, "Girl, what are you doing?" But like, because I will say this, it took a while for me to really submit and surrender to Sid. You actually want these things, because I'll say this, I did not want to transition, Karina, because even though I was queer in community, literally DJing, doing all this stuff, I truly found trans people to be so fucking annoying. And I say it just because trans people, like, we have a right to complain. Like, there is so much that's fucked up in the world. But I remember just being like, I'm not a complainer. Like, I wasn't raised, like, in our house, we were not allowed to be dissatisfied with things. It was like if you were raising a complaint, it meant that you did everything in your power to try and change something and nothing is working. So I was always taught to like, just basically put your nose down and work. And like I was extremely judgmental, quietly so, of like trans people or non-binary people, just feeling like, oh my God, like, these people are so annoying. I don't want to be annoying. So I don't want to be trans. Like I truly had to be like dragged out of the trans closet where it was like really clear, like, you really want to do this. You're very depressed and unhappy. Because when I look back at that time in London, like I was killing it on multiple fronts, but I was so miserable. And I think a lot of that misery was just like where my head or my spirit was, where it was like, okay, like something's not matching up and I'm not the person I want to be. And like, this is, it clouds your whole reality. Um, so yeah, once I got over that hurdle and I was like, okay, this is actually what I want to do. And it does feel scary because it's like it's surgery, and like you're removing a part of your body. And I think, and also it's like, I wouldn't say like less common, but again, like there's just more trans visibility today than there was before. So it was just this thing of like, okay, I know I want to do this thing. And like for me, I always wanted to be binary. I always say to people, my pronouns are he, him, his, and girl, because I hang out with the girls, so you could girl me. But I'm very he, him. I'm not a they, them. Not that I have anything against it. I respect all my friends, but it was just like, no, I want to be a dude. Like, this is amazing. If you told me that I could do this, like, holy shit, I would have never believed you when I was like 10. So, mm, mm. Mm, we made it. Okay, I really want to hear about your experience with this too, because, for me, like, at times I'm like, am I just following the transcript of like, because for a long time, like, I don't know if I really believed in the idea of gender dysphoria. So, like, for folks listening, like, gender dysphoria is truly like more of what's the word? Like a bureaucratic term, I would say, that was created to. Because, okay, let me give a little trans history lesson. In the 1960s, there actually was a really big push for research around transness. This started at Johns Hopkins University, and a lot of this was like, again, questions like the Kinsey scale, or there in the 1950s there was this woman. Oh my God, why am I blanking on her? She was a GI, and she had a really big transition. Oh my God, I should know this name, but I can't think of it right now. Basically, it was like a really big deal because she had fought in World War II, had this huge transition, and it was like big news, right? And so, like, that idea of like the idea that you could change your gender was kind of in the air. And so there used to be these gender clinics that were around the country in the United States, even in places you wouldn't expect, like Texas or Missouri. Stanford was a big hub. Yes, this is stuff I need to like write about. But yeah, basically, like they had this whole process to be able to get like gender affirming care, and you had to follow a very specific script in order to be accepted. And like part of one of the parts of the script was that idea that you were born in the wrong body. And so a lot of people applied for these programs and a lot of them were rejected. They even had certain criteria of like if you were going to transition, you would have to be like heterosexual in the way that you transition. So like if you're female to male as a man, you would have to like sexually be attracted to a woman. This is important because Lou Sullivan, who's a trans guy, he was a huge activist in the 80s, unfortunately died of AIDS related causes. He's like one of the reasons why gender and sexuality end up being, what's the word, decoupled, sort of in a scientific sense, because he was a gay trans guy and like he was trying to get like bottom surgery and the doctors denied him that, even though he already had top surgery. He was like living as a man, cruising, doing all this stuff. He has a really great memoir called "We Both Laughed in Pleasure." That is his diary entries, super fascinating. Highly recommend. Um, but anyway, all that said, there was a very specific script, and part of that script is still kind of like alive and well as far as insurance companies coverage. So, for example, the process I had to go through in order to get my top surgery was you have to get three letters. One is from your GP saying you have gender dysphoria. A second is from like a social worker or and again, it's like very specific language. And I say this because I remember the social worker who did my paperwork when I was at Callan Lord, she accidentally messed up. Thank God the like therapist, psycho or psychologist who had to write this other part, another letter, caught it, and she had written that I needed to get breast augmentation, which is not the terminology for if you're going to have a double mastectomy. Yeah. So, and I forget. Right. And mind you, that's obviously what trans women, right, or like people who are assigned male at birth, if they're trying to get enhancement, will get. But what was so fascinating is I talked to the psychologist or psychotherapist, whatever, the other person who had to write this piece of paperwork who caught it. And he was explaining to me that years ago, when they were at the negotiating table with the insurance companies, they, first of all, did not expect so many people to want to get gender affirming care in this kind of way, because once they started covering stuff, it like exploded as far as the numbers go. So you have to be super specific about the language because they're looking for any reason to deny you coverage. Like that's just it. So long story short, I was always kind of questioning the gender dysphoria thing. I was like, was I always set in my body? Because like what was confusing to me was like I loved being a lesbian. It was amazing. I had so much fun. I always described it as like one big sleepover where we're all on the same cycle and like we're just like doing moon cup stuff and like whatever. You're just like I know it's listen, especially for my trans women friends, the healthiest ones are the ones who become lesbians. Like 10 times out of 10, if you were not looking for a man's validation, you will probably live a healthier life. But anyway, I like I always feel like everyone should just try it or just like be in that world for a little bit because it's also just again I made a video about this about how I'm like lesbians are the ones who figured out early on how to decenter men. Like because I see this movement happening with a lot of straight cis women waking up to like, wow, I decentered men. I'm like, girl, yeah, you're like a couple decades, centuries late, but I'm happy that you're here. Like, welcome aboard. Period. Period. They don't get credit. They need more credit for like, because like lesbians also did so much for like women's empowerment movement stuff. Like people don't realize something as innocuous as literally wearing pants. Like people don't realize. Like I remember in New York City, they're like they had these like cross-dressing laws in the 50s and 60s. You were not allowed to wear jeans as a woman. Like it was the butch lesbians who did publicly, and they would get the crap beat out of them or even sexually assaulted by cops. Like that's how real the shit was. And like I don't think people really understand that history of like how far we've come. But anyway, that being said, yes, for me, the gender dysphoria thing, I was always kind of like, oh, is this just like a convenient narrative, right? That is like woven into the way we have to like justify ourselves or existence to things like insurance companies or the government or, whatever. Because I can't say I was like wrong or born in the wrong body. Because I think what's also interesting is like the way I look back at my life is like, I'm so grateful I lived as a woman for like 27 years. Like, it gave me so much insight. And I also think I'm a healthier man in certain ways because of it. Like, I still have to like heal a bunch of shit like everybody else. But I do think like when I think about my masculinity and my manhood, like what that means to me, um, yeah, it's heavily informed by like I know what the other side of the equation is like, and I'm like even grateful because I have like so many cis guy friends, especially gay or queer, who have like so much trauma from the toxicity of like what they had to experience just being socialized as boys or men. Um, because I think there's like a lot that it's again really hard to kind of like escape in a certain way. But yeah, I feel like for me, the arrival point, it's so funny you mentioned that because it's actually something that I have to like constantly remind myself of. Like I'm 8 years on T. Right, is it 8 years? Yeah. Like I started in 2017. Yeah. And like I had top surgery that year as well. And so I've had to like really be like, Sid, it's a gift and I also I achieved my goal of wanting to pass and like The only place I don't pass is for whatever reason on the phone with my bank. I don't know why Chase, they just man me all the time, but it's like whatever. It's always some Filipino lady somewhere, somewhere in the Philippines who's like, ma'am, and I'm just, anyway. But otherwise, like, yeah, it's just been a very interesting journey. And, at least on the gender dysphoria front, I'll say this. I think I've come to like again, it might be like a surrender thing because here's what I really want to get to, Karina, is and I'm this is why I'm curious your thoughts. Sometimes when you're really smart and you're obviously one of those people too, we try to outsmart our feelings. Right? Right? No, but you will like I literally was trying to like over intellectualize or try and like intellectualize myself out of wanting to transition. And it had everything to do with like, again, like the surrender of like, no, this is who you really are. This is what you really want to do. Like, why do you have so much judgment against people who live authentically in their truth in this way, right? Even the judgment of like, oh, I don't want to be annoying, right? Like this idea that like trans people are annoying is like, these are people who speak up for what their needs are, and you have been taught to believe that you don't have a right to do that. So you're annoyed by the fact that they are living in their truth and in their freedom and asking for what they need, and you don't do that. So like that's actually what the fuck is going on. So um yeah, I feel like I was like doing that game for a long time. And I say it too because I think like when you're really smart, you'll like try and think that you're somehow above like everybody else. Like I feel like there was some sort of like elitist complex I had. And I also think this is just like, I went to an Ivy League school. I went to the best schools in Europe. Again, I was like rewarded for my intellect. And I think like there was that feeling of like, oh wow, I have to be in my body or like, like actually how I feel is taking supremacy right now or like is actually what's most important because in all of those spaces you are never rewarded for your feelings. You are actually like usually like reprimanded for having feelings in any kind of way. um, so for me to get real with like, oh wow, this is how I actually feel. This is actually, and literally it built to such a fever pitch where it was like I could not ignore the call anymore. I could not, pretend that I was cool with shit that I wasn't cool with anymore. So yeah, I will say what was interesting with top surgery, literally after, because I was in a PhD for a year at UPenn trying to develop all this oral history, ballroom research stuff I was doing and I was just dealing with so much transphobia. I mean, it was just like crazy. Like literally students, faculty, people would say stuff to me or like be weird or like literally had a professor in the Black Queer Studies class literally fail me because I had asked for an extension on my paper right before top surgery that winter and it was like, okay, wow, thank you, gay cis man, for all your support. And like, yeah, there were like just levels to the fuckery. But the thing was, I knew in my heart of hearts, I didn't want to be an academic. I knew I wanted to do my work commercially. And like, I wanted to do documentaries. I wanted to like do podcasts. I wanted to like share my oral histories research and like do this in a way that spoke to more people instead of like the academy. And after top surgery, when I was healing, I'll never forget, like, it's like you have to like really lie stiff and like just stare at the ceiling. And I remember I was like, yeah, Sid, you're a fighter. You could fight this, but like, you don't care what these people think. Like, this is actually not where you want to be. And the reality was, I wanted to work in TV and film. I just didn't have the courage to do it because, like, to me, that seemed like such a lofty dream. That's like what rich people get to do. And I didn't come from money. So I was like, how am I going to support myself? And basically I was lying to myself thinking like, oh, I'll do this PhD and that will give me the financial stability to then do the dream. It's like, no. The universe was like, cut the bullshit. Exactly, like seriously, it was like, no, Sid, do the thing that scares you. And then literally that was my pivot year. I just started taking informational interviews. Anybody who would talk to me, friends of friends, alumni who like worked in Hollywood, and one of my good friends, Chloe Castellan, I love her. She gave me the cheat code. She was like, Sid, she was a screenwriter. She had done one of the really big contests, the Nichols Fellowship, which is through the Oscars, and had placed as a semifinalist with her writing partner. And she was like, writers write every day. You know, basically, there are these diversity fellowships that the big networks have, the studios have. You should apply for them. And you know, she just kind of gave me the tools, and I just started to get to work. And I remember I applied for this one fellowship or this contest through Macro and the Blacklist, and I placed. And I was like, okay, this is my vote of confidence. Writing is a craft. I just have to work at this craft, and I'm gonna like pivot out of this program, which I did. I like moved to New York, had no money. I was just like, kind of just, doing the New York thing where you're like treading water and like chasing your dream. And I was like bagging groceries at Trader Joe's. Shout out to Trader Joe's. And yeah, I know that was quite an experience too, because I was in the downtown Brooklyn location, which was like, oh my God. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to New York, at Trader Joe's in New York, but it's always packed. It's like absolutely insane. But I would like write in the morning, go to work in the evening, wash, rinse, repeat. And like I did that for at least like a month and a half before I got like a better job at CUNY, and just like chase the dream. And was able to, I mean, like so many things happened. Literally, it was like I was trying to figure out how to adapt my work, and like I remember taking meetings with folks, and like this is how I ended up writing this New York Times article about realness in the ball scene, pulling from my own experience that I talked about in Paris, where basically just talking about how the good sides and the bad sides of kind of the category. And then from there, that's what got me on Legendary as a producer, which was so crazy because I was already working on my scripted material. And again, like I said, just like working this job, just to keep the lights on. And the showrunner hit me up. He was like, hey, we're doing this new show about ballroom that's going to be on this new network, and you're a writer from the scene, and you understand this culture. Like, it's easier for us to train somebody who's already a writer who understands this culture about how to write for unscripted TV. Would you be interested? And so that was kind of like my big break. But yeah, it was a crazy road to get there. Um, that, that was my Saturn return. It was literally the death of the old world, and like truly, it's interesting when I think about it too, because it was like top surgery, which was a bit of like I had double incision, so there's like different techniques that you can get. Um, I had double incision because I think I was like a B36 pre top surgery. So it's a lot of tissue, and it's annoying because like you have to have these drains in. But fascinatingly enough, because I was helping a friend with this like 2 years ago, the techniques have gotten better because again, more people are getting this done. I think it took me maybe like 2 weeks before they pulled the drains out, but you have to like really move slowly and massage and all the stuff. Now though, my friend had like, I don't know, double D's, and like for them it was like 1 week of recovery, which I was like, wow, that's I know. I was like, wow, that's so wild. And like literally, not only like it's heavy, but then like there's the psychological weight, I think, especially for this friend of like, they didn't want to be perceived as a woman. They really felt more comfortable being non-binary, and like it was cool because I actually talked to one of my friends, my dear friend Simone, who is like trans and non-binary, and they were explaining to me how for them they really like to not be perceived, or like they like to be kind of like androgynous where you don't know, and how that's like a source of power for them, which I thought was really cool. Um, so yeah, there's so much. I mean, I think for me with top surgery, it's interesting when I look back, like I mean, this is also why like so many trans guys are doing like beach photo shoots all the freaking time. Like if you're on this app and you're on the FTM side of things, it's like everybody's like a little glam boy. Like we're all taking like glam shots. I mean, I also have this theory that I think for a lot of us, especially for trans men or trans masculine people, I think because we were assigned female at birth in a lot, I mean, not everyone, it's different now. I feel like Gen Z, like they're transitioning at younger ages. But for those of us who at least spent like a significant time in girl land, I feel like a lot of us either, how do I want to say this? There's kind of this like princess thing that I think is like in all of us. Like it's like the Disney princess thing of like wanting to be pretty. um, because I really think like this is why a lot of us are pretty boys. Like there's just like a thing where we're like, and a little bit of it too is like it's another adolescence. So you're kind of like self-obsessed of like I want to take pictures of myself and like whatever. But I also think I literally said this to my friend Leif, and he totally agreed with me. He's like, I see it said because for the gay boys and the trans girls, they're queens. Queen energy is totally different. It's very much, that's giving, Elizabeth II. Whereas I feel like the trans guys were like very Meghan Markle energy, where we're like, it's very like glam girl. You don't really know what's going on. Anyway. It's also this like surreptitious thing. I feel like there's like an energy to it's a little like Mean Girls ish because I don't know. Anyway, I've talked to some guys about this and they're like, yeah, I see it, I see it. I also think another thing I realized is like I think I transitioned to be the male lead in a lot of rom-coms that I like didn't realize I watched like as a kid. Like there's yeah, it's like this like again, I think there's like this thing that's like you don't even know it's there, but it's kind of there as far as the energy goes. But anyway, a tinge, yes. Love that. I totally see that. mm, mm. I love this. Also, this is good because I think allows us to circle back to my question to you about that feeling of like when you were saying like how it took you a while to be in your body. Because I don't know. I mean, I just told you like obviously so many story beats. It was like and it was when I look back, like back to back to back to back. I mean, I was always kind of going from one thing to another, and in another country, and then like I said, I was like very much living on these like academic calendars for a long time. Um, so I don't know. It's interesting because, with transition too, like I was so focused on the goal, right? And the goal was like, I want to be able to pass, right? Top surgery, I want all these things. It was also funny because like also I hit this point where it was like I passed, but then I was like, oh, if I want to like have like muscles or abs, I have to do all this freaking work. And like it was kind of funny because then I hit this point where it's like I know. We'll call Drake. Hello, Drake. Tell us all about the lipo we have to do to get that, or his muscle suits. I think I saw like clips from his concert. He had these like muscle suits. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Um, but yeah, no, which is kind of interesting too, because then it makes you like, I think for me, I was like, oh, I'm just a guy now. Like if you want to do that, like it's not, the testosterone will only get you so far. You like literally have to like completely rearrange your lifestyle and like food and all this stuff. And that was kind of funny too, because then I thought about it. I was like, do I want to do that, or like how far with that do I actually want to go? And then I was like, well, I like dad bods. Like I hook up with dudes with dad bods. So like, why am I anti dad bod? Just have a dad bod sit. And then I was like, okay, whatever. Like it kind of got sorted. Life are balanced. Yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm like, not counting calories. Dear God, no. Um, but yeah, no. I think that question though, because I actually feel like this is the first time in my life where I've been able to like, and truly last year. I don't know if you're, are you into like perfection house years? Do you know about that? Like, okay, it's like I don't know. I got so deep into like all the occult, woo, astrology. We can go wherever you want to go, mediums, so on and so forth. Um, but yeah, for me, it was like finally I had the space to rest, to actually make space for myself to rest. Because again, I was never taught how to do that. I felt like I was in survival mode for a very long time and really reflect. If anything, all my family stuff came up this past year. I feel like this was like my big awakening of like, we've achieved all the stuff that we wanted, Sid. We have the career, we have the body, we have the this, it was like materially, like everything seemed to be here, but then in inner work, the emotional spiritual realm was not. And it's interesting because it made me see like, oh, I became the man I wanted to be on the outside. Now I got to do all that inner work to really have it all come together. So yeah, for me it was like a lot of healing. Oof, I mean, family trauma, how I grew up, the ways I was showing up. I mean, I truly had my like breakdown moment last year because even though I had sold this book on Ballroom, I lost the book deal last year, and it was totally, in so many ways, me falling on my own sword and like and to be fair, the book I have been writing, it's a memoir history, so it's like my story of transition as well as the history of Ballroom. And I had been gathering all the data, like doing the oral histories, going into the archives. It was like, again, all this material work. But then in order to do the memoir, you have to do all of the inner work, look at all the shadows, all the yucky parts of yourself that you don't want to accept. I mean, for me, it was, I feel like we are all saying similar things. Like, we're getting rid of perfectionism, people pleasing, needing external validation, toxic shame, guilt, grief, like that. I've been through so much, but I just, hadn't spent any time to really process it. So, if anything, my journey at this stage of life has been very much, again, like learning how to integrate those parts of myself, going deeper with EMDR. I mean, there are like levels to it, but I think, yeah, it's just interesting because I don't know, even when I think of like the trans stuff, it's just kind of like, how do I say this? I don't want to say it's obviously not superficial. It is something deep. I just forget that like for most people, it's something that you'll like never experience, that idea of like shifting genders. And I don't know, maybe because I'm around so many queer trans people, like it's just like, oh, like, oh, so and so is getting this done. It's just kind of like whatever, you're like in it, but like I forget, like, yeah, it is, it's like I've lost friends along the way. I've had to like transform relationships. Again, you experience discrimination, which sucks. But I don't know. The gift is obviously I get to live my truth and like haters be damned kind of thing. Mm, 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 mm. Oh, wow. I love that. How very vampire season. Also, that Meryl Streep movie. What's that movie where she like lives for? Is it? I should know this. It's the one where she like lives forever and she like twists her head. Anyway, yes, I love that for you. 500 years, so you can just see people's progression of society. Okay, wait. What are the other two? Mm. Mhm. Ooh, interesting. To tell, yeah, to be able to just like go wherever you want to go. I love this. But wait, I want to go back to something you said because we're obviously talking about like, this somatic healing and mind you, again, it's just so super fascinating of this journey that I've kind of been on um around that question of like being in your body because for example, like when I had top surgery, it was truly like I remember just feeling like, oh my God, I have intuition now. Like I I could feel like, Sid, you don't want to be in this PhD program. You're incredibly miserable here. You really just want to work in TV and film. Just pursue that and like figure out how to make it happen. You've made a lot of other shit happen. Yes, and it was because it was the first time I actually felt like I was in my body. Like and I it again I get this is the part where I get curious of like what is gender, like why could gender make me feel like, oh, I'm finally here, like why was I checked out of my own body, um and like, again, looking back, I can, probably say that like it was like I got to, yeah, I guess I got to, be the person I wanted to be or like show up in the way that I wanted to show up. Because this is the other intellectual thing I want to know. Like, I think as hyper intellectuals, and I see certain people, especially if they're at the beginning of their transition, again, you're like trying to like, what is it, do a deal with the devil, or like you're trying to like negotiate around your feelings. And for me, I'll just speak from the I, like, I remember, just trying to like again rationalize, oh, it isn't that big of a deal. Oh, you don't really need this thing. Or like, it's like you're constantly doing this like bullshit negotiation because to have to admit to myself that I do care how other people perceive me and I want to be perceived as a man and that is important to me, it felt like a capitulation of sorts because it feels like why can't I be the bigger person who doesn't care what other people think about me? But and this is kind of where it gets hairy because it's like obviously I'm not looking for external validation about whatever how I show up in the world, that kind of thing. But when it comes to gender and how I'm seen and how I want to be in the world, that is important to me, and it is important that people see me in the way that I want to be perceived. So it again, like it took a while to just be like, yes, you want this thing. No, it's not a bad thing. You're allowed to have these feelings, and um, again, it was just kind of like that was like the beginning of like, okay, I'm truly in my body in the way that I want to show up. But I was curious when you had mentioned that it took you a while to kind of get to that space of being safe or able to show up in your body in a full way. What was blocking you, or like what was your journey to get there? Mm. 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 Jesus. Their nails done, no shade. Mm. 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 Wow. Ooh. Wow. Mm. 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 Oh. Mm. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 Oh. Mm. 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 Damn. Totally. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 I know, rest, rest. That's what my therapist. Rest is part of the work. I always forget that. Mm. Mm. Right. Mm. 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 No. Yeah. Oh, I feel this so hard, Karina. Oh my God. I'm like, huh, maybe this is why the emotionally neglected children find each other later in life as adults. Hmm. Was it, I mean, I will say I was also a very hypervigilant kid. And like, for me, I realized early on, because I grew up in a house of like chaos, dysfunction, oof, abuse. My parents, I mean, my dad was an abuser, awful, and my parents finally got a divorced when I was in high school. But, I was like you, where it's like I had to take care of myself. And I realized that at a very young age, at 12, I was like, I remember I showed my dad my report card, straight A's, and he shrugged. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing this for these people. This is for you, Sid. And if you want to get to safety, if you want to like live independently and like have a life and a career that doesn't involve these folks who don't know how to love you, then you got to work your ass off. So I was also like that, where it was like survival mode. Everything felt do or die. It was always go, go, go. And yeah, I would guilt myself about resting, um, and like truly, taking a break and, um, just feeling like I had to, get everything to line up, even around the transition stuff. I mean, even hearing the bureaucracy you had to deal with the city around your, nail salon, like, that was my breakdown when I remember I was like dealing with the bureaucracy of transition, of just like I'll never forget. I was like, had to go to my consultation for my surgeon at NYU, and I went by myself, and I just had this like meltdown getting out of Penn Station, just in tears, trying to like pump all the way down to like the East River, and just feeling like I'm so exhausted and depleted. And back then I just didn't know how to love myself. Like, and I finally freaking get it now. I'm like, when people are talking about like self-love and self-care, like I get how it is truly the reparenting, of like really giving yourself the unconditional love that I you just weren't given as a kid, and like having to like learn all of this all over, or for the first time. I think that was the thing, is I had to really be kind to myself and realize, like, Sid, you were not taught these things. Literally nobody in your lineage was taught this. So let's be kind to ourselves. Also, it's so interesting what you said about enjoying the journey. I literally had a moment like this. I was going to post about it, at some point, because I walked a ball recently. There was like a Halloween themed ball, and you had to have, like, for trans man realness, you had to have this like Terminator look. And I remember I had like my leather jacket, and I reached in the pocket and I found like 2 euros and this little Berlin bear that's like the symbol of the on the Berlin flag. And it was such a crazy moment, because I was like, wow, think about where your journey started, Sid, in Berlin, however many moons ago. And like, look at where you are now, walking this category as the man you've wanted to be. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt a little bit of grief, a little sadness, because I was so obsessed with getting to this point that I almost felt like I missed, like, it was almost like if you were a parent and you were overworking and missed the fact that your kid grew up. Like, that was kind of how I felt about myself, where I was like, oh my God, I feel like, because I was, like a lot of people document their transition, especially in the early years, like, here's my voice MP or whatever. And like, I was doing that for a little bit, and then I kind of dropped off. And it was, to me, a moment to be like, Sid, enjoy the journey, because you will get to the destination. And to your point, like, that is where the sweetness, that is where, just being able to savor the moments, even when they suck, which I think is like hard when you're obviously in it, because you're just like, get me out of here. But, mm, mm, Hmm. Yes. Yeah. Mm, 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 yeah. Mm, period. Hello. Uh, no, I love that. You're so right. It's also so interesting you said that because I went for a hike today. I live by Runyon, which is like this, really nice hiking area in LA, and I truly had that moment where I was like, God, it's so like the sky was so clear. And even though I had like, monkey mind going a little bit of just like, feeling grief, because I know like, depression is like you're living in the past, anxiety, you're living in the future. So to be present, really means to just accept, radical acceptance where you are right now. But I had that moment where I was like, God, this is so beautiful. And like, I always, when I catch myself doing that stuff, it's like, it's usually when I make my little gratitude list, and I'll just like do like a quick 10. All right, Sid, like, what is, because, gratitude lists are truly like, what is the present? Like, what is your actual life instead of, where you wish it was or where you hope it'll go kind of thing. So, yeah. Mm, mm. You said, because we were talking about gratitude lists and you mentioned the COVID, how it rocked your world. Yes, I'm with you. Mm. 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 Oh, no, I haven't seen this yet. Is that a disco ball? I love this. Okay. I love that. Love her. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Hello. Mm. I love it. Hmm. Okay. Love that. Hmm. Mm. 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 Ah, I love that. I also love the fact that it's like a totem, like it gave you, um, I don't know, it's so interesting how things like that can, what's the word? Especially that it's a physical item, you know? Yes, and obviously it's like a disco ball, so that obviously already evokes like a lot of emotions too. But and also that because I think what's cool is like when you're talking about it, using it as a ritual, that's kind of how, because like one thing I've learned through the years through like different community workshops and things like that is about how we as humans are very ritualized, even in ways that we don't see right away. And for me, that's definitely my morning ritual of like, I wake up, I do 10 minutes minimum meditation, 10 to 15. Like I'll read from a daily reader and then make my coffee, make my breakfast, do my morning pages. And it's like, that is like, I've arrived for the day. And what's nice is even when the ritual either gets broken or, there's some aspect of it maybe that's missing or something, um, at least I'm aware. So they'll be like, all right, Sid, we didn't get to do our full meditation today. You're going to be a little off. Like, it's interesting because it allows me to even be kinder, more compassionate to myself and give myself more of a break because I know that I'm, 100, not necessarily 100% in the way that I usually show up or what have you. So, yeah. Mm, 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 mm. 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 I love it. I love it. I know because I know we're a little over time, but I do want to ask you because It's so interesting. I mean, one thing I've always wanted to make a comparison between, and maybe this can be in the next video that we do. Like I felt, I mean, obviously I haven't had, I haven't had a child. I also am not, I feel like that's maybe not, at least a biological child from my body, not something I'm necessarily looking to do. But I have seen I've always felt like there are parallels between pregnancy and transition in certain ways. I obviously should ask, like, there are trans guys who've had kids too, but um, I say it because I forget one of my friends who's a doula. I'm trying to remember the word that she told me. It's something like transformational change or something like this, but basically, it's this kind of thing where, like it was interesting hearing you say how you had postpartum and then it was like after having the kid that it kind of like opened up this other world of you connecting with your body. And like I said, with top surgery, for me, that was that moment where literally surgery is like, you're so in your body, like you're forced to heal. I feel like that kind of surrender to me being in the physical world is so real because I'm so used to like go, 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 go. And then having to actually stop to like allow your body to heal is such a big thing. But also the transformation of yourself because like pre-transition, I mean, I didn't know what my life would look like on the other side of all of this, but there was still this part of me that was like, I want this thing, like I want this experience, I want this, way of viewing myself in the world or what have you. And anyway, I just wanted to like throw it out there that I find it really interesting for you. It sounds like it was also this like your physical transformation that kind of led to a deeper spiritual transformation for yourself. Wait, you gotta say why. Wait, I have to know. I love this. What is so? Also, I gotta write this word matrescence. I have to look this. I'm gonna Google this later, but matrescence. Okay. Matrescence. Mm, love this. Hmm. Mm, period. They put a disclaimer on the at the beginning of those Disney movies now, which I think is hilarious. I know they're like this. I know, I know. Beauty and the Beast. My God, how many abusive relationships? Dear God. Anyway, class action lawsuit against Disney for gender fucking all of us. Anyway, yes. So. Mhm. Mm. 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 Oh no. Not that. No. Oh. Oh. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Ooh, interesting. Wait. So, okay, because when you say the layers they added to could you just unpack that a little bit? Right. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Nice. Yay. Mm. Mm. Oh yeah, I'm somewhat familiar, like here or there, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 Okay. Yeah. Mm. It's interesting you say that. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Because I was gonna say, I mean, one of my big things too, like as part of my healing, was I started Al-Anon. Because what was interesting is like neither of my parents were alcoholics. However, I'm pretty sure my grandfather on my mother's side was. And so it's like this thing. I remember like one of my friends read the like 20 questionnaire of like, Al-Anon, and I was like answering yes to so many of the questions. And I was like, that's so weird. Neither of my parents were alcoholics. Like, why would this be a thing? And then my friend was like, well, shake the family tree and you're probably gonna, out follow the alcoholics. So it was interesting because also it allowed me to kind of, really connect with the deeper spirituality, also reconnect. I mean, I feel like a lot of this, like reconnecting to my body, like I said, like with the transition, it was like I did it on a very material way. And I think like this is something I'm even working through or trying to understand more is like, yeah, when it came to gender sexuality, somehow that was so much easier for me, which I know it varies for everybody, but I was just kind of like once it was like, oh, being a lesbian is an option, great, where's the party? Bam. And then it was like, oh, queer? Yeah, literally, it's like, oh, being queer, cool, yeah, I'm down with that. And then like obviously trans, like I said, it was a bit of a struggle, but then it was like, cool, like what do I have to do? Because with trans, it's more like the bureaucracy of trans, as there's something with like paperwork and then getting the appointment with the surgeon. I mean, things align for me because I'm a hustler, and I make shit happen. But because again, some people are in a process that can take years, and it can take a while. Um, but the deeper spiritual stuff, I mean, that thing of honoring, when you're talking about your throat chakra or just like, honoring your authentic self, I see all that stuff as being related to we're safe now, right? Like I'm not back in Morton Grove, Illinois, which is like where I grew up, where I didn't feel safe to say hello. Like I can finally, say what I need to say or make a choice. I think the big thing is like know that we have a choice, right? Because like you can choose. And I think that's the big thing is like knowing when to walk away. I mean, for me, definitely like nervous system regulation is a huge thing. Again, like part of my losing my book deal was like don't send that email, Sid. Let's let's pause before, and again, it's like these are skills that I didn't learn, and for the longest time, it's like I get it now when like if you haven't really healed a lot of things, like I see how it shows up again because you feel like you're back in that place when you're like, no, we're not back in 2002. Like we're here in 2025. Like, also like you need to grieve whatever happened at that time so that you can actually show up as your full self. And even to your one of your points you said earlier, which is the importance of learning how to become whole is being able to hold the dualities, of like I have grief, I have sorrow, I have loss, or whatever it is that's there, and then at the same time, there is so much joy, beauty, stuff to be grateful for that like these can coexist and literally their coexistence. I mean, that is the human experience. That is what our soul, chose to do here. And again, it's like, how are we supposed to know any of this? Nobody was talking about that. Or the people who were, let's be real, the people who were talking about this stuff were completely dismissed in the 90s. Or, I mean, even actually, when you talked about motherhood, I got really obsessed with Madonna's Ray of Light album. Um, because I don't know if you know this fun fact, she was 39 at the time. This is after she had her first child, Lords, and um, literally, like the song "Nothing Really Matters" is about like just how her life completely changed after she had her first child, and she talks about that moment where it's just like there's this vulnerable person who and you think about like who you are as a person and how you're showing up and like, just yeah, it's totally makes sense to me, at least on that level. But um, yeah, I think that idea of like truly learning how to be whole, it's obviously like it's a journey not everyone does, which I also think kind of makes us like hopefully we won't be unicorns in the future, but I do think like my therapist constantly has to remind me of like, Sid, this is you're doing the work a lot of people choose not to do, you know. Mm, 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 mm. You're like, it's so funny. Mm, mm, right. Mm, mm. Oh. Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's sweet. Yes. Yeah. True. Birds of a feather. Also, I mean, I will say with Al-Anon, I have had to learn, Sid, like you said, you're on your own journey. Keep your side of the street clean. Because, I mean, that's, I just, like, it's interesting because I feel like, well, not, number one, a lot of my friends, especially in the queer trans community, are in recovery of some kind. And I almost feel like it's so, it almost feels like a rite of passage. And I don't know if it, on some level, it's like literally the homes we grew up in, and or I also think because so much of LGBTQ plus life is tied to nightlife, it's like you're in the bar, you're in the club, you're, drinking, you're partying, you're doing drugs, like I mean, it's part of why I left Berlin. I was like, oh, yeah, it's time to go because I could see how either you get too deep into that or, it's again, it was just like very clear to me. I was like, hedonism. Glad I did whatever I need to do in my 20s. We went through that, but um, yeah, I think my big thing has been, and I feel like this is what I end up hearing from most people on a healing journey. We're all just saying the same thing in a different way. Is like learning how to center yourself, learning how to be in your body again, learning how. I mean, I get it what people mean by getting to know yourself. Yeah, it's been like it feels like a very lonely journey, but I also get like I know myself. Like I literally know how I show up for love. For example, like for example, I was telling my therapist the other day, like I had breakfast in bed for myself the other day because it's like one of my favorite things when I'm in a relationship. I mean, breakfast is like my favorite thing. But it was interesting to be like, Hussid, like instead of waiting for somebody to be there for you, just do that for yourself. And like, how beautiful is that? And it was also just so interesting to be like, wow, Sid, like, this is who you are. This is how you like to be loved. Like it's like stuff like that where you also again have to be connected to your body in order to be like, how am I feeling right now? Do I, and ask those questions. Yeah. Hmm. no information or even expecting. I think this is the other thing. I mean, I'm really grateful that I've been able to do all this work, even though, all the things I had to lose in order to do that. But like, I mean, and it's so funny because today I'm going to treat myself to an ice cream because I was like, Sid, we have done so much spiritual work like this past year. Yeah, finances have been crazy. Hollywood as an industry is just like free fall. But the thing that I've been so grateful for, I see, is like all of the work that doesn't like how do I show up in the material world, in the way that money or career or whatever would. Um, and on top of that too, like I realized like I'm really grateful I've been able to do this work because now I actually do feel like I could show up in a relationship because I now one have a relationship to myself where, to all those questions like way emotional regulation, again, knowing that it's not bad for me to center myself or my own feelings or to check in with myself first, and not expecting that from the other person. Because I think obviously that's the fucked up Disney message or, whatever mainstream message that we're all given is that, oh, it's either somebody will complete you or that, that's the whatever the purpose of a relationship. And you're like, no, like that's, again, it's like you said, you're on your journey, so is, the person you're with, and it's about sort of, meeting each other somewhere in the middle of that. But yeah, it's been it's interesting because like I think even talking to you, I really love obviously, Karina, we could talk forever. Maybe we'll do like a weekly or a monthly where we just I know, because we went over time, but I was like, this is too good. But yeah, no, I feel like it's interesting because even talking to you, like, and this has been something I've been parsing through as I've like gotten back into the memoir as far as writing is just like, you know, um, it's almost like, okay, yeah, there was the transition part. Like I said, I became the man I wanted to be on the outside, but it's kind of like, what was all this stuff that was still kind of lingering that needed to be processed and like, kind of like understood in a certain way. And um, yeah, I don't know. I get the sense even just talking to you, it's like everybody has their version of that. And I think like mine was just like the trans version of that. Which, I don't know. It's like I feel like I mean, you even gave me a word. This, what was this? Matressids. I love this. It even sounds like a shampoo. Matressids, or a drag queen. Matressids, yes. Um, no, but like even a concept like that, I'm like, ooh, that's so. Because yeah, what does it even mean to be yourself? I mean, that's why I was saying, just the parallels. I think between like pregnancy and gender transition, it's like you are somebody else on the other side. You're not the same. Even though it's still you, And like literally, I know obviously your hormones and stuff are, just like so much, but it's like 7 years of what is it, like vitamins and stuff, just like boop comes out with a baby. Like there's just takes, yes, I've heard of that. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. I know, but you know what? I also think this is because the other thing I do want to say on here is, I mean, one of the things that I actually kind of learned this recently, I never really thought about it, but trans issues, the reality is a lot of it is also women's issues. Like, these are very intertwined. Because, like, you talking about that, right? Like, the fact that you didn't know that, it's because people were not talking about them. By people, I mean women. mainly, right? Like anyone who could have a child. It's just kind of this thing where it's like, yeah, we're finally talking about all this stuff. There's finally a space and a forum to do it. I mean, that's like feminism, right? It's like finally getting women in a room to talk to each other about what the fuck is going on in their lives. But I think, the trans stuff is also kind of in that same realm, or rather, how do I say this? Like, the reason why like transphobia, all this stuff is an issue for people who are transphobes is because it comes down to, well, who do we get to oppress? Like if you're like on the side of like thinking that there's a hierarchy where it's like God, men, women, and then, whatever, everybody else, or and also like a racial hierarchy of sorts where it's like white people at the top, everybody at the bottom. Um, the whole trans thing will fuck with you because then you're like, well, who's a woman? If I don't know, then I don't know if I need to respect you or not. Like it's weird because like these things actually, yeah, like I, yeah, I. Okay, and can I say I got that from somebody on TikTok? Thank you very much. Because I remember there was like some woman who was like, "What is up with the right wing? And like, why are they so obsessed with trans?" And like somebody just did a stitch, and they're like, "Well, in the like, white Christian nationalist perspective, this is how it breaks down." And I was like, "Wow, I didn't even think of that." But yeah, that totally makes sense. Of like, oh yeah, yeah. Also, can you make your screen? Because am I on the big one or is it only on my end? Oh, oh, okay. Yeah, I think I could. Period. mm, mm, interesting. Interesting. Mm, 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 mm. Interesting. Wow. Mm, interesting. Mm, yeah. 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 Mm, mm. Yeah. Exactly, of the human experience. Literally, same thing with Al Anon. And I gag too, because it's like, I think all this identity politics stuff, while these tools are useful, and I always say this, identity politics, these are tools to help us understand our world, which also means if you have a hammer, everything can look like a nail, but not everything is. And if anything, yeah, the universality of the human experience, it really showed me like it allowed me to be more compassionate, especially towards other people, because you don't know what people have gone through. Literally, we've all been through so much, and a lot of us are trying to heal and trying to like figure that out. Um, but yeah, also, oh my God, Kareem, you know what? I bet you just your existence in that small town, you are like, I'm sure there are people whose lives you're affecting who you probably don't even know. Because like yeah, Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, but mm-hmm. Mm, mm, mm-hmm. Mm. Aww. Yes, I love it. Mm, 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 mm. Amen. Oh, I love that. And you know what? You made your impact and they will continue to follow your work. So it's just the evolution, like you were talking about evolution, of kind of what your physical imprint, I think, on that space will be. But I say it just because I know when it comes to like queer trans stuff, for example, like literally visibility, me just seeing that guy's YouTube series changed my life, you know. And I know that, and I've had certain people sometimes tell me, like, Sid, just witnessing your transition or whatever has like helped, or you know, you never know your impact. But I just feel like, especially in places where there might not be witchy people or people who, again, think outside of the box, or even you just like being somebody who is vocal and states your mind, you know, and like may not, or may, you know, may be at odds politically or whatever in that kind of space, like it's super impactful in a way that is like massive. So thank you for doing the work. Listen, yes, spiritual. Listen, I'm deep in it too, darling. And it's funny too because it's like I feel, especially in LA, I feel like I was already like witchy light, and then you get over here and you're like boom, deep. Like I'm so. And again, you know what? I almost think too. It's especially since you and I were both raised in certain ways, especially around. Um, I think like I get the sense that, especially if you are like hyper intellectual, you get to a certain point where the material world, like it's almost like you reach the zenith where you're like, okay, this is as far as I can go with trying to understand my human reality with just that. And it literally becomes, because to be fair, like we're right, if we're like spiritual beings having a human experience, I feel like you only got 50% of what you were actually here to do. So then you got to get the other 50%, which is all of the like spiritual work, the deeper emotional work, the, you know, the healing work. It makes sense. Yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Amen. Oh, amen. I am so with you there. Like better, and it's good that I feel like we caught it soon, almost like it's like a kind of cancer right now, really, though, because yeah, we have time to heal that. Love it. She was giving WNBA. Is that what she was giving? Hello. I love it. Mm. Oh wow. Mm. 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 Yeah. Mm. 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 Yes, and you are doing it. And you are doing it. This is seriously so powerful. I seriously, I'm just so grateful for you, Karina. This has been such a great, because I know we went well over, darling, but I think we just gotta we gotta do like a weekend or something at some point. I feel like we have our own, it's our own pod that's gonna happen. But yeah, no, I'm just so grateful, and I'm grateful that you were able to also like give me the space to speak and to us to chop it up. I feel like we definitely need to chat again because there's like I feel like we just got like we truly only scraped because there's like depth, and it's also, can I say, just super cool. Because I to again just like exchange notes almost on like the human experience. It feels like we're just like, this happened to me, this happened to you. Like I don't know. I'm also like you, where like my brain is always working, but I love being able to just spot the likenesses, or just like, because I feel like there's a lot that you've said that I will have to definitely process, and I think even gives me even more, what's the word, yeah, just kind of like almost like material to work with in order to better understand my experience and speak to more people too. So I'm super grateful. Thank you. Yes, my non-existent, my soccer balls. No, I no, I appreciate. Yes, our balls. These are the balls. I love it. Disco balls and soccer balls. That is, you know what? I'm gonna sew that, make that my thing. Disco balls. That is the balls it takes. I appreciate it. Ah, all right, Karina. Well, I was gonna say we'll definitely have to do another one. Also, for the seven folks tuning in, you can obviously follow my work. Or and it's literally just my name. If you want to check out all my ballroom stuff, I post on TikTok, but I also post a lot on Instagram. So please follow my work. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, love it, love it. All right, thank you, Karina. See you, everybody.